Hi, welcome to episode 295 of your favorite daily podcast, a couple of things, a podcast about things. Today we're back in the Bible. We're talking about forgiveness. Let's get into it. Like I've said so many times on this podcast already, in my Bible in a year reading, I'm in between the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And this morning I was reading Matthew 18. I'm a bit behind, but that's not the point. I was reading Matthew 18, where Jesus gives the parable of the unforgiving servants when Peter had asked him that how many times should he forgive, basically. And also, wait, I don't know if that's when Peter asked him, but anyway, Jesus is talking about, yes, it's when Peter asked him, and it's also when Jesus talks about like how to handle when somebody offends you, basically. And this was interesting because just a couple of days ago I was discussing forgiveness as well. I was playing a card game where it's like questions about different biblical concepts and things, and you just answer them. Anyway, I was like, this would be a good thing to talk about. And forgiveness is a very interesting concept because it's something that we struggle with. Somebody has really deeply hurt you, deeply offended you, done something that maybe even harmed you, whether emotionally or physically. But as a Christian, there is a demand that Jesus has made and placed on us to forgive other people. And the idea is that if you, being a recipient of the like I literally saw this parable of the unforgiving servant in a different way. Like it's still the same way, but it just became clearer in my brain and in my mind what it is. So the unforgiving servant is owing the ruler of the kingdom or the king 10,000 talents. And I guess maybe the study notes in the ESV Bible is really helping me see things like clearer. And they talk about how 10,000 talents is basically the equivalent of about $6 billion in today's money, and today being when this study note was written, so it can be more. So $6 billion, that's how much the unforgiving servant is owing the king, with 10,000 talents, equivalent of about $6 billion. Whereas his fellow servant is owing him just 100 denarii, which is the equivalent of about $12,000 in today's terms. The point is, the unforgiving servant was forgiven a debt of over $6 billion, but he could not forgive somebody else who was owing him $12,000. And obviously, the problem there is that he wasn't moved by the fact that he was forgiven of such a great debt. Like, it didn't mean anything to him that this burden had been taken off of him. And so that's why he could not extend the forgiveness to his fellow servants. The second thing is, if you now look at it from the spiritual aspect, which is the point, we owe God such a great debt that we can never repay, because according to this thing, the daily wage of somebody is not like, it's not a lot, because you're earning 30k per year based on these estimates of the denarii and talent and all of those things to dollars. You're earning 30,000 per year and you're owing a debt of $6 billion. Please, when do you want to finish paying it? Even if you don't do anything, if you don't eat, if you don't buy clothes, if you don't do anything, when will you finish paying this loan? It's impossible. You can't pay the loan. And that is how we are with God. With sin, with all the things, there's a huge separation between us and God that we can never bridge. We can never do enough good works. We can never do enough good deeds and avoid enough bad deeds. Like in the good place, the scale does not balance in your favor in any way, because you cannot, because it's just too big of a debt that we owe. And then God has given us this grace and this forgiveness through the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. So it's not that the debt was just wiped away. Somebody paid for it. Like, God himself paid for the debt that you owe him and wiped the slate clean, that you don't owe anything again. And an appreciation of that fact to transform our hearts to the point that there's nothing anybody can do to us that we cannot forgive them for, because we have received such great forgiveness that we cannot even begin to quantify and qualify. We should be so transformed by the love and mercy of God that we pour out that same love and mercy to other people and forgive other people when they offend us and when they, do things or say things that hurt us. There is, earlier in the Gospels, there is the story of the woman who came and anointed Jesus' feet and wiped it with her hair. And Jesus said something as like, he who has been forgiven much, or some, let me look for it so I can quote it properly. So this is in Luke 7:36-50. And Jesus tells another parable of a certain moneylender that had two debtors. One owed 500 naira, the other 50. And the moneylender cancelled the debt of both people. And Jesus is basically saying that the person who realizes that their debt, like they had a huge unpayable debt and it has been forgiven, is more likely to love more. And so until we appreciate and realize that we have actually been forgiven a huge unpayable debt, a debt that we could never have paid, we would love more. And so this reality is not yet imprinted in our hearts if we're unable to forgive other people, basically. And forgiveness doesn't then mean that forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation necessarily, because you can forgive somebody. Forgiveness is all about your own, like it's you make decisions to forgive. It has nothing to do with whatever the other person does or doesn't do in the process. But reconciliation requires the other person. So you can forgive, but there's still boundaries and all of those things. It doesn't mean that you're all buddies and friends and it's like all of that. There can only be reconciliation, at least that's my understanding of it. There can be forgiveness without the other person who has hurt you doing anything at all or apologizing or anything. But there can be reconciliation until the person acknowledges that a wrong has been committed against you. And because I think about it this way, God has created an avenue for us to be reconciled with him. That gift is there. Like Jesus already died on the cross and was buried and resurrected and ascended. So that is already done. It's already available. But there cannot be reconciliation to God until we accept that, we name that, we believe that, and we confirm it through our words, our thoughts, and our actions. So there's no reconciliation until God has already made the first move. So the only thing left for us is to make the next move, and then we can be reconciled to him. I hope what I'm saying is understandable. But that's the point. Like, forgiveness is not about the other person. It's not about what they did or didn't do or said or didn't say. It's about, do you realize and acknowledge the weight of the love and mercy and forgiveness that has been shown you, and has that transformed you to the point where you are able to extend that to other people? And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Couple of Things. If there was anything you found interesting or insightful, or you enjoyed the episode, please do share to someone or multiple people. Like, leave a comment, and definitely do subscribe and all the nice things. Bye.